Ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good afternoon to everybody on a rare edition of the Lewis Sports Network with my two main guests, T-Mac and Vinnie Mac. Welcome to another edition of the Lewis Sports Network. It is your boy Lewis coming back at you with another live stream afternoon banger with yet another live stream video. Make sure to smash the like button. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure your notifications are turned on. Make sure you guys are sharing this on your social media outlets. And also make sure, again, as always, you guys are showing that love. And I truly appreciate that. Again, welcome to another edition. Welcome to the live stream. I hope everybody is doing well. Again, shout out to the LSN Mod Squad. And like I said, as you guys can see in the thumbnail, you got my boys T Mac and Vinnie Mac, aka Air Canada Vince Carter, about to throw the dunk. And that picture is from the 2000 All Star Weekend. Both T Mac and Vince competed in the slam dunk contest. It was actually one of the more electrifying slam dunk contests in NBA history. That was a really awesome weekend, and the 2000 All Star Game was actually really fun when you look at some of the highlight plays. But anyway, the highlight of this video, and again, salute to everybody that is in the chat. Shout out once again to the LSM Moscow. Let me know who is in here. Shout out to Brandon Rogers. Appreciate you. Anybody like sports? That's my man Sly. He says T Mac is better at scoring. Carter's better at dunking. Kobe was better at everything. Well, I'm going to get to all that. Again, guys, make sure to like the video and share this. Shout out to Ron. Wow, Ron, you're here early, man. Appreciate it. Usually you're here by nighttime, but appreciate you being here early. Again, shout out to you guys. Okay, so the topic of this one is Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter. Who was the better player during their peak years? The reason being is because everybody knows that T Mac was elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame. And the rumors are well, the question now is because Vince had just ended his career and unfortunately he will not get to play in front of fans. Is Vince Carter a Hall of Famer? And then you also ask yourself, who was really the more better player in their prime? Was it Tracy McGrady or was it Vince Carter? Well, if you're looking to find out that, you have come to the right place on the Lewis Sports Network. So I want to thank my two guests, Vince Duncan, the basketball, Vinnie Mac, nickname of Vince McMahon, but I call it that for Vince Carter, Mr. Air Canada, and then obviously Tracy McGrady, T-Mac. So I thank you guys for being here, and thank you to the chat for being here as we start to talk about the video. Vince Carter, electric dunker. You know, his nickname, VC, Vinsanity, Air Canada, Yoda, half man, half amazing. Half man, half amazing was used a lot during his 2000 season. They call him the Flying Man in Sunshine. So Vince is 43 years old. He just turned 43 in January. He's from Dayton Beach, Florida. He was the fifth pick in the 1998 NBA draft, and right after the Bulls won their sixth title, that was the year of the lockout. He made his NBA debut on February 5th of 1999. He has 22 years of experience. Vince Carter played for 8 different teams in his career. He started his career drafted by Golden State, but got traded for his North Carolina teammate Antoine Jameson, who was drafted by the Toronto Raptors. They were traded on draft day. Vince started his career with Toronto. He spent 7 seasons there. He got traded to New Jersey and spent about 4 to 5 seasons there. After that, he went to the Orlando Magic. He played a couple of seasons there. He played in Phoenix for 1 season in 2011. Then he went to Dallas and played 3 seasons there. He went to Memphis and he ended up playing 3 seasons there. He spent 1 season in Sacramento in the 2018 season, and then he's finished his last couple of seasons out here in Atlanta. So let's look at a little bit of Vince's accomplishments. He is a 2000 Slam Dunk champion. He is an 8-time All-Star, made 2 All-NBA teams. He made the 1998-1999 All-Rookie team, first team, and he was the Rookie of the Year during that lockout season for the 98-99 season. Let's take a look at his points per game, his rebounds, and his assists. I have mentioned this before in a couple of live streams before, but again, 16.7 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game, 3.1 assists per game. He was a volume scorer at 43.5%, but he was a pretty good 3-point shooter in his career at 37%. Shot about close to 80% from the free throw line. Shout out to Sports Expert, appreciate you. Shout out to Chiefs fan, appreciate you guys as well. Again, make sure to like, Make sure to like the video. Make sure to share this on your social media. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Getting back on this, where was I? Here it is. So yeah, 37% from the 3-point line, which means he was a pretty above average 3-point shooter for a two guard. He also played 2 and 3, and he shot close to 80% from the free throw line. His PER is under 20 at 18.6, and his win shares were at 125.3. Now you ask yourself, what's the issue right here with Vince Carter when you look at his career? It just feels kind of empty. It feels kind of empty, or you could say almost really empty, because as much as he was an 8-time All-Star, you look at his career, he came from the University of North Carolina. There's a lot of things that you have to look at Vince Carter, and at times that you would kind of say is questionable when it comes to his career. What am I going to give Vince Carter credit for? Here's the things I'll give him credit for. He gave you superstardom the minute he came into the league. That's one. Number two, he really put the Toronto Raptors on the map for Canadian basketball. So I will always give Vince Carter credit for that. He was the first basketball superstar when you talk about Canada. That was really big for Canada and really put Canadian basketball on the map when you look at. So Vince Carter did have an impact and influence on Canadian basketball. So you have to give him credit for that. He was part of a Toronto Raptors team in 2001 that actually won their first ever playoff series. So that's really big. So, there are some positives that you could take with Vince, when you look at what he did in his early years in Toronto. And he did play with his cousin, as you can see on the bottom, Tracy McGrady, for a couple of years. So I think that was really cool, to see what these guys, to see those guys together at one point. As you can see, because I remember Tmac back in 2000 when he had an interview. No, not an interview, but he spoke to Tmac, I think, before the game. This was Ahmad Rashad, and he said that he felt like Vince and Tmac could have been the next Jordan and Pippen. They could have been the next Jordan and Pippen. Here's where my issue lies with Vince Carter, and it even goes to an extent with Tracy McGrady. The problem with these two guys is Vince Carter never really committed to the defensive end, because when you look at how athletic and how versatile T-Mac showed with his potential, same thing with Vince Carter, those two never really committed on the defensive end. They really never committed on the defensive end. And if you look at T-Mac's career, this guy came out of high school as the 9th pick. So he was a top 10 pick, but he was very raw. When you look at his career, I actually even want to go back to the 98 draft. If we look at Vince in that 98 draft, I want to go to that in one real quick second. If it could just upload for me. Okay, the crazy part about this draft was, so there were 58 picks. 56 of the 58 picks actually played in the league. The location of this draft was actually in Vancouver, Canada, the team that Vince would end up getting traded to. Vince was the number 5th pick. But check this out. In this entire NBA draft in 1998, Vince Carter was only one of 5 All-Stars, one of 5 players to make the All-Star team from the 98 draft. The other players, his UNC teammate Antoine Jameson, Rashard Lewis, Dirk Nowitzki, and Paul Pierce, who was in that same draft. Jason Williams was in this draft. So was Rafe LaFrance. So was Mike Bibby, Robert Tractor Trailer. Larry Hughes was in this draft. Bonzi Wells, Michael Doliak, Keon Clark, Michael Dickerson, Matt Harpring, Bryce Drew, Rashawn Nesterovich, Pat Garrity. I remember some of these guys. Rashawn McLeod, I remember him. Ricky Davis. Oh, everybody remembers Ricky. Everybody remember Ricky. Brian Skinner, Tyronn Lue. The Allen Iverson stopper. You got Felipe Lopez, who I know he's Dominican and he went to St. John's, but he didn't really play a long time in the NBA. It was really short. I still remember him when he made that video about his favorite rapper being Snoop Dogg. I still remember that. Al Harrington, who was out of high school, he was the 25th pick in the draft by the Pacers. Okay. So here's my issue Here's my issue with that, and it's crazy because Jameson went fourth, so he was the pick before Vince, right? And I'm doing great, G Money. He says he likes Vince Carter, but he felt T-Mac was better in his prime. G Money says early stream nights. Both guys were not great in the playoffs. G Money says VC should have beaten AI in 2001, and who knows, Toronto might have beaten Milwaukee and made the NBA Finals. I don't think they'll beat the Bucks, but it would have been an interesting Eastern Conference Finals. He says sadly the Knicks blew a 2-1 lead against Toronto in 2001. Vince Carter actually didn't play well until the last two games of that series. I'm doing great. Hope everything's good with you, G Money. Ron says, I think Vince got a little too caught up in the dunking thing, and it took him a while to develop the rest of his game. And you could question if he played winning basketball. That's a good point, Ron, because when you look at T Mac and Vince Carter, these are two players that I felt like more so Vince. I think he got caught up too much in his ego with that All Star weekend, especially with his dunking when it came to his NBA career. Uh, I really felt like he never really worked. He did work on his 3-point shot. You could tell that he really worked on that shot during the offseason when he went into his second season because Vince was taking a lot more perimeter jumpers in his second year than he did his rookie season. Uh, because Vince, you could literally see that he had a flair for the highlights. He really did have a flair for the highlights. And what's crazy about Vince is he had so much potential. He really had a lot of potential when you look at his career. But him and T Mac never really developed it the way that I thought that they would. G Money says, in your opinion, if New York beats Toronto, do you think we beat Philly and potentially Milwaukee in 2001? No, no. Philly was a better team than us that year, despite the fact that they were just mostly a one-man team with Allen Iverson. They were better than us because they were much a better defensive team. Um, and he says that. And listen, and the thing is, when you look at Milwaukee, yeah, were they were not a good defensive team, Milwaukee, but they had a lot of offensive firepower though. In terms of Cassell, Allen, and this was an injured Sam Cassell who had issues with his chest. He had bad ribs. But Ray Allen, and then also Glenn Big Dog Robinson. Uh, when you look at the Bucks, they had Michael Redd coming off the bench, even though they didn't really use him as much. But the Bucks were a pretty good offensive team. I question if Vince would have taken the challenge to guard Ray Allen because I know he took the challenge in going scoring for scoring with Allen Iverson like he did in the 2001 playoffs. And I'll get to what he did in those 2001 playoffs in a second. Uh, Rico D, shout out to Rico D, appreciate you. He says, I feel like Vince Carter's career was really based off of healthiness and longevity alone. You could really make the case about that his career was really based off of that because and it's like I said before earlier, I give Vince a lot of credit for what he did for Canadian basketball. And he looked like he was going to be one of the best two-way players of his era. It was looking that way early. Now, what's crazy about Vince is when you look back on this 98 draft, Vince Carter has the least win shares out of these three players. Him, Paul Pierce, and Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk Nowitzki finished his career with 206 win shares in his career. Paul Pierce finished with 150. Vince Carter only finished with 125 win shares in his career. And if you look at Vince's career, Vince Vince really didn't really start to change his game until his athleticism started to fade. I mean, he still showed flashes of his athleticism, but now he had to be a little bit more of a skilled player. But my issue with Vince is he never really tried to make the onus of being a better defender in his career at all, which is upsetting for a guy who's as athletic as Vince Carter is. And then you can make the same case with Tracy McGrady because when you compare T Mac's career, T Mac made 7 All-Star teams, one less than Vince. But T Mac was able to lead the league in scoring twice, 32 points in '03 and then 28 in 2004, even though he was on a very bad Orlando Magic team that year. He he improved his game from 2000 to 2001 because he won the most improved. Also, Vince only made 2 All-NBA teams. That's really disappointing. T Mac made 7, and T Mac played in less games than Vince Carter did. T Mac only played 938 games. Vince Carter has played in 1,546, but like the key that Rico D said was longevity. And T Mac was still able to make more. all NBA teams than Vince Carter did. That to me is what's very disappointing about Vince's career, which is why you could kind of make the case that Vince, is he really that impactful when it comes to his NBA career? And he quickly became a role player by the time he was in Orlando. So which was his third team. So Vince looked like a superstar early, but became a role player by the 2010 season. So by 2010, and I remember there was a game in the regular season that he scored 48 points. I think it was against the Hornets. Uh, Vince up to that point really wasn't playing well. And Marv Albert was on call in that game, and he said when Vince actually put that really good game, and Vince was really getting the injury bug by that point. I already knew that he had a bad shoulder. I know that his knees were starting to act up by his second season already. Shout out to Anonymous, man. Appreciate you. He says, "Was good." Appreciate that. Again, guys, like the video. Make sure to share it on your social media outlets. Lewis Sports Network bringing you Tmac and Vince. But at the very least, I feel like Tmac was the better. He was the better scorer at the very least in his prime. At the very least in his prime, because if you look at T-Mac stats, and T-Mac came out of high school where Vince came out of college, so you would have thought that Vince would have came in with a more polished game. And the thing is also what I didn't like about Vince is for someone who came out of college, you would have thought that he would have incorporated the team game and understand the team game more. But Vince to me was really more so about himself. So he was a tad bit selfish because even Vince admitted himself that he didn't play as hard as he thought he could have. But again, if you look at the Hall of Fame, because T Mac is in there, it would be double standard hypocrisy if Vince Carter's not in the Hall of Fame. So that's what really helps. But when I look at both T Mac and Vince Carter, T Mac, even though I don't even think that T Mac is a Hall of Famer, to be honest with you, and I love T Mac. T Mac was pretty good in his prime. T Mac's best prime years were actually from 2000 to 2001 to 2004. Actually, I could put 2005 in there too because T Mac was playing a lot more games. He played a lot more games at that time than he did, um, you know, right before his career really started to really hurt him with the back spasms. His back spasms actually started to act up in 2002. And that to me is very scary that T Mac is 24, 23, 24 years old getting back spasms. Vince really started to dwindle down once he started to get knee injuries because if you look at Vince, yeah, if you look at that right here, Vince in the beginning, 50 games. That would equate to 82 games in the beginning of his career when he started his rookie season. Then the next year, he played all 82 games. Uh, Obviously, Toronto didn't win anything. They were just a lottery team that year in '99. But in 2000, they actually made their first playoff appearance. They won 45 wins. They went up against the 50-win New York Knicks, and they got swept that year. They got swept. Shout out to Low Key T in the building, and make sure that you guys go subscribe to his channel. If you look at Vince, um, okay, G Money says Vince Carter and T Mac were super athletic and they had hops, but their defense was horrible. Again, shout out to T Mac had more of an offensive arsenal than Vince Carter did. Again, Low Key T, shout out to Low Key T in the building. Subscribe to that man's channel, man. If you guys haven't, go subscribe to Low Key T. Show that brother some love and subscribe to this channel. Ron says T Mac's game as an offensive player advanced a lot quicker than Vince, but he got a little too happy with scoring than other aspects of winning, and he was very injury prone. Yeah, I feel like T Mac very quickly really showed a lot of improvement in his offensive game, and his one-on-one offense for me was slightly better than Vince Carter's. But the problem is, if you look at Vince, Vince was very selfish and more concerned about dunking and putting on a show than really trying to become a better basketball player. Even though a lot of analysts will always say that Vince is trying to show that he's better than that, but with the capability, when you're athletic as those two were, and Vince was obviously more athletic than T Mac, why didn't you work on aspects on your game like trying to become a better defender, improving your defense, trying to see if you could try to, become better at steals, blocking the opposing two guards, taking the assignment of guarding the other players. Because when it comes to Kobe Bryant, the one thing he may have not had Vince's athleticism, but Kobe had more drive than Vince to be great. That's something that you can never take away from Kobe when you compare to Vince Carter. And I hate to say it, but T-Mac is on record as saying that if there's one player that he would have loved to play with, it was Kobe Bryant. Uh, and T-Mac calls Kobe his best competitor. Vince to me was always jealous of Kobe because not only was Kobe winning, but Kobe was able to prove that he was able to play at a dominant level for a long time. And I think that had ate away at Vince for a while. Now he's grown to respect Kobe. I think he's always respected Kobe, but there were some things that he didn't like about him. Because I find it ironic that Vince would make comments like, I remember when Kobe had scored the 81 points, and Vince was like, "Well, he was what was he saying? Oh no, he was basically saying that, oh well, Kobe, him scoring the 81 points is bad because he's influencing a generation of kids to just be now scorers." And I said, well, well, Vince, that's ironic from you because you never really worked hard in the defensive end. And with Kobe, at least Kobe was able to play defense at an elite level. You never did that, not at one time in your career, Vince. Were you capable of it? Yeah, but you just wanted to be a human highlight film, not really much of a basketball player. It took you a long time to really to really improve your skill set over the years. And T Mac was much more advanced offensively, as Ron said, than you were. It's just T Mac focused a lot on scoring, where T Mac also could have been a much better defender because T Mac had the length and the wingspan. And Vince, you were athletic enough to be better defenders, but both of you did not do a good job of that. And that's where, your guys' careers to me could have been a lot better. And it possibly could have helped you guys win. Um, at the same time, in T Mac's case, though, he had a worser. Vince's issues was he couldn't stay healthy by the time that he was in his fourth season. He only played 60 games in 2002 after going 50, 82, and then 75 his first 3 years. He missed 22 games in 2002, and the Raptors were able to make the playoffs without him. Then in 2003, he only played 43 games, which is crazy. And then in 2004, he obviously played 73 games, which is cool. But then in 2005, he did play 77, but then he ended up getting traded. He spent the first 56 games with Toronto before getting traded. Excuse me. And then then he goes on a stretch where he plays for New Jersey 79, 82, 76, 80, 75, 80. So Vince was pretty healthy in his time in New Jersey, but with Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson, they were never really able to win a championship there. And people were saying, well, Vince Carter, Richard Jefferson, and Jason Kidd, they formed a big three, but they underachieved. And Vince underachieved in his time in New Jersey. He was never really good defensively. And Vince's career has pretty much been a volume scorer. The highest he ever shot from the field was 46.5%, and that was in his second season. But like I said, he's shown that he's been a pretty solid 3-point shooter, 47% for his career. So which is pretty good, on Vince's part. And shout out to the B Davis 231. He says that T Mac was a great passer, and a rebounder for a wing player. I see what you're saying. T Mac was pretty solid at that position in terms of that. If you look at T Mac's career, T Mac, he gave you almost 5 assists at the wing position, and he averaged almost 6 rebounds. I think they could have been a little bit better for me in T Mac because I feel like that those guys, like I said, this is why I feel like that. Um, because both of those, and this is the thing with both guys. I think what would have been cool with them is had they stayed together, ladies and gentlemen, they could have actually switched the 2 and 3 position because they both played it. Vince was a 3 and a 2, and T Mac was a 3 and a 2. And if they had stayed in Toronto, they could have swapped. But again, my issue with them is T Mac would have never grown as a player. But see, that's the issue that they don't have. Uh, T Mac was trying to become his own guy. He was trying to get the recognition of being under Vince's shadow. Vince was getting a lot of notoriety, you know, with the attention he got, but he mostly got it, especially with what he was doing his first. Obviously, heading into the All Star weekend, Vince was getting all this attention, but Vince fed into the spotlight. So, it's crazy how Vince complained about being a dunker, but the problem is Vince fed into that. He fed into the spotlight, and it really took Vince a long time to really work on other aspects of his game. Um, Ron says, "Can you imagine the havoc that Vince could have caused on the defensive end with his athleticism?" Absolutely, and I say the same thing with Tracy McGrady. If those two stayed together, it's to me they probably would have helped each other become not as injury prone as they did, because what happened is, well, in T Mac's case, he did a lot because he focused so much on scoring and not on other aspects of his game. It really hurt him in terms of injury wise. But the thing was also in that Orlando Magic team, Tim Duncan was not allowed to come, and he was a free agent. And you have to blame Doc Rivers for not even allowing a team meeting with Tim Duncan. Then you also have Grant Hill, who couldn't stay healthy. Then if you look at T-Mac's uh, second and third seasons, a lot of the players on his team had a lot of injuries. They had 3 to 4 guys consistently injured. So he never really got to play a full season with some of the players that were injured on Orlando in 2002 and 2003. And then if you look at obviously Grant Hill, he was never fully healthy during the duration in Orlando. Um, I think the only time he played the most games in Orlando was actually the year that T-Mac's first year, getting traded to Houston. I think Grant Hill, believe played 70 games that year, which was the most he had played, I believe, since 2000. So that hurts. Again, guys, smash the like, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you guys are sharing this on your social media outlets. Again, Lewis Sports Network giving you T-Mac and Vince Carter, which is why I felt like for a Hall of Famer, I felt like T-Mac to me was a little bit disappointing. Shout out to Karam in the building. Appreciate you coming through. So yeah, when you look at T-Mac and Vince, they had so much potential together, so much. But it went to waste because those guys focused, kind of focused their careers on one aspect of their game and really didn't try to focus on other things that could have made them a lot more better players. And I think also it could have influenced, because I wonder why Vince Carter didn't even try to make it work with Chris Bosh as well. Um, you know, because if you look at Chris Bosh, he was able to maximize his output when Vince wasn't there, and then also even though he had to sacrifice his game a little bit with LeBron and D Wade, the result was Chris Bosh won a championship, multiple championships, and Chris Bosh made 11 All-Star teams. He made 11, which is very underrated for Chris Bosh. And I'm going to do a future video on Chris Bosh and the disrespect that the media gives him, acting like if he's some role player. But Chris Bosh is definitely one of the more underrated players, of his era. And again, shout out to Karam in the building. Appreciate you, man. So when we look at that perspective, this is why I say that as even though T Mac is in the Hall of Fame, it's disappointing what these two could have been, when it comes to their career. And again, shout out to everybody in the chat as I'm doing an early stream with Vince and T Mac. So when you look at T Mac, but for superstar players, these guys traveled a lot. T Mac played for 7 teams, Vince played for 8. But the injuries really, and I feel like the lack of being better players, uh, which they could have been better because T Mac only won 90. T Mac is crazy. T Mac has less win shares than Vince. He's at 97.3, but he's in the Hall of Fame. And people are now discussing whether or not Vince is in the Hall of Fame. Now, the question is, do I think T Mac is a Hall of Famer? Uh, it's crazy to say. T Mac had never played 82 games in a season in his career. Vince at least has accomplished that, 3 times? But again, Vince's case is really more so longevity. And I'm going to say it again. If T Mac is not in the Hall of Fame, I don't think would be in the Hall of Fame. But because T Mac is in there, it would be foolish to not put Vince in there because Vince has played almost 600 more games than T Mac. Vince has been able to play 22 years. He's played 4 different decades. The media is kind of hyping it up because listen, I'm gonna give T Mac credit for him to be able to reinvent himself and play the amount of games he's played. Because look, in Dallas, he played 81 games as a role player. He played 81 games back-to-back years. He played 82 games with the Nets. and he was able to average 25 points a game. But both of those guys are volume scorers, both Tmac and Vince. They're both a product of the ISO ball era in the 2000s. That's where they rose to prominence. Ron says I have to go out and do a little work for a minute, so I'll check you later. All right, cool. All right, Ron. It's all right. Thanks for coming through, though. Yeah, Chris Bosh made 11 All-Star teams, and he was an All-Star in his third year in the league. So this is so I'm gonna read about Vince Carter. So even for 22 seasons, his legacy to me is one longevity for playing for 22 years. I actually would have liked to see Vince compete for a championship at the very least, but Vince really wasn't about chasing rings. If you look at the way that he did, he was really more so about being a veteran presence to locker rooms. After he became pretty much a role player at the stage of his career, he became really more so a mentor to the young players that were being drafted and on basketball teams. So his legacy, like I said before, it'll be before what he did for Canadian basketball. So Vince really, I know fans, they booed Vince Carter because of the fact that he admitted that he didn't play as hard or put as much effort for the Raptors as he should have. But at the very least, I know that the Raptors gave him a tribute video and he got emotional. But I still give him a thank you for what he did for Toronto basketball, for what he did for Canada basketball. Uh, he put the blueprint for Canada. So yeah, I know that he didn't win a championship there, and Kawhi Leonard ended up coming there, being traded from San Antonio, and giving the country their first. He gave another country, their first NBA championship, but still got to give Vince credit for being the foundation for Canada basketball. Vince was good with the Mavs. Shout out to B Davis. He says T-Mac was projected to be a top 20 player of all time before the injuries. He was projected, but B Davis, winning's got to go into that too. And that's the thing with T-Mac and Vince Carter, because they had the talent to be great. But when you don't win, that really hurts their stock. So injuries was a part of it. I do agree with you. But again, it also comes to what are you going to do and what it takes to be a winner. See, because Kobe, you can make the case was not, some people would say, because if you look at Kobe was not blessed with the athleticism of Vince Carter. He didn't have the wingspan of a Tracy McGrady. Like, the thing is, Kobe was not as versatile as a Vince Carter or a Tracy McGrady. You could probably make that case about that. Now, is Kobe capable of, like, passing the ball and getting assists and getting rebounds and all that kind of stuff, filling up a stat sheet? Yeah. But what I'm saying is, when you look at T Max's size, when you look at his wingspan, he could have been much more than just a scorer. That's when I look at T Mac, that's how I look at him. Was he a solid rebounder? Yeah. At the wing position? Yeah. Could he have been, and he got some assists? Absolutely. But I just think that T Mac could have been so much more. It's just, I just look at these two guys who are Hall of Famers that never really lived up to their potential. That's the thing with those guys. I love Monte Ellis on that team too, and I don't know what happened in Indy. There's probably stories on what happened with Monte Ellis with Dallas and Indy. So I'm pretty sure there's something. In my opinion, the Spurs were the only team that could beat the Heat in 2014 because they had the bench and the ball movement. Okay. Mavs nearly upset the Spurs in 2014, but the Heat got smoked in the NBA Finals. Okay. I see what you're saying, but this is a T-Mac Vince Carter video, not a. I know Vince played for the Mavs, but yeah, man, getting back onto it, Vince will always get the recognition for that. So he's inspired guys like Tristan Thompson, Corey Joseph, Andrew Wiggins, because they're all Canadian hoopers at the highest level. Well, they're saying that he racked up huge career numbers. I wouldn't say huge. Those are really more so cumulative, because Vince's prime years Vince's best season, he averaged 27 a game, 27.6, and he played 75 games that year. And he shot 40% from 3-point range. He shot 46% from the field. He's 76 at the line. That's decent. And I think he should have been a better free throw shooter. T-Mac actually kind of reminds me of Scottie Pippen a bit when it comes to the free throw shooting, because I think T-Mac, uh, T-Mac even had a couple of 60%, even shots under 70% a couple of seasons. And I think the highest T-Mac ever shot was 79%. For Vince Carter, the highest he shot was 84%, and that was when he was in Orlando. So when he was in his athletic prime, the highest he shot was 80%. But at that point, Vince was already starting to decline in his athleticism and get injured. I mean, he still did show hops in New Jersey, but I thought he had way more hops in Toronto. We're talking about Vince and T Mac. You talking about LeBron 6 foot 200. I appreciate you coming through though. Yeah, T Mac came close, and he was at that point a role player in 2013. Vince did ball out with Dallas, and he's a cold blooded three against the Spurs. Game three in 2014. He says VC had more range from downtown than T Mac did. I'll say he attempted a lot more. Maybe you could say he had a little bit more range. I wouldn't just say like more range, but yeah. Um, 6 foot 200. Oh no. So let's see. The B Davis 231 says, "How do you think that T Mac and Vince would do in the Dream Team era? Oh, in the 90s. Okay. In terms of offense, they would be fine because they're both athletic enough and versatile enough to play in the 90s. The issue is they don't defend. So I could see and give me 1 second really quick. So yeah, to answer your question, B Davis, when you look at T Mac, uh one of his favorite players growing up was Penny Hardaway. And if you look at Penny Hardaway was kind of like the Tracy McGrady prototype and what I mean by that is that he was 6'7", 6'8". So he had the length. He had was a T Mac was a good passer, just like Penny Hardaway was. Penny had the handles. Um, T Mac had some pretty solid handle of his own. Um, So Penny was versatile, just like T Mac is. When you look at his versatility, he did play two positions, but T Mac had a big wingspan. So the fact that T Mac kind of his game for me kind of resembles a Penny Hardaway, just T Mac is just a much more better scorer. It's just a better scorer than Penny, a better scoring version of Penny Hardaway. I think T Mac would have actually been fine in the 90s. Um, and let me see. G Money says that Vince and T Mac were good free throw shooters. I would say T Mac was. I would say T Mac was okay because T Mac had a few seasons where he shot under 70%. So I wouldn't even say that. Vince to me was actually a better free throw shooter than Tracy McGrady because at least Vince cracked the 80s a few times. I think Vince could have been in that 85 to 86 free throw shooting range. T Mac should have at least had a couple of 80% free throw shooting seasons. So to answer your question, I wouldn't say they were. I would say Vince was. a much more good free throw shooter than Tracy McGrady was. T-Mac kind of reminded me of Scottie Pippen when it came to his free throw shooting, but at the very least, he did shoot 79%. I don't think Scott. I think the highest Scottie ever shot from the free throw line was 75. McGrady was so good, you could say that he was better than Kobe. Mm, that's tough to say because I would say that Kobe was a better two-way player than Tracy McGrady. Tmac didn't commit himself on the defensive end, and you're probably speaking offensively. But even then, so Kobe to me had more a fit. Kobe was to me a little more efficient when it came to his offensive seasons than Tracy McGrady, and I felt like Kobe was a more dominant scorer than T-Mac in terms of longevity. Kobe did it for more better periods of all, because if you look at Tracy McGrady and you look at his true shooting percentage, which would be in the advanced stats, let me look at his per 36. This will be in his advance. If you look at T-Mac's career in terms of his true shooting percentage, the highest that he ever did was actually in Orlando, which was the 56. But he had a lot of, his true shooting percentage for his career is, kind of low. And then with Vince Carter was actually slightly a little bit higher, but at that point, you know, wasn't even as good. Um, Shout out to Alex Sports, appreciate you coming. McGrady was a better shooter, 3 inches taller and longer. Let me see. Again, guys, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and make sure you're sharing this on your social media. G Money says he likes T Mac, but he felt Kobe had more moves and weapons than T Mac. Yeah, Kobe was actually much more skilled than T Mac. That's true. Kobe was much more skilled than Tracy McGrady. There were some things with Tracy that was a little bit predictable in his game. A little bit. I'm not gonna say totally, but there were some things that were a little more predictable in Tracy McGrady's game than there was Kobe's. Kobe was. This is why when you talk about Kobe, they're arguably saying that he's arguably the most skilled in NBA history when it comes to his skills. Now, when it comes to skill set, I put Kobe in the top five for sure. When it comes to skill set, I like T Mac. Yeah, McGrady was a better shooter, 3 inches taller and longer. Well, what he has was 3 inches taller and longer. Better shooter, I don't even know about that because Kobe had even better range than Kobe had better range than T Mac. Johnson says T Mac was better than Vince. And shout out to Johnson Daily Sports and go subscribe to his channel. He had made 7 All NBA teams to only 2 for Vince, and that's the thing that upsets me about Vince Carter. He only made 2 NBA teams, All NBA teams in 21 and 22 seasons. That's kind of a yikes for me. Like I said, he has the Hall of Fame case because of, and then if you include his college career, so yeah, because T Mac was able to make the Hall of Fame coming out of high school. And the fact that he played in 600 less games almost and made 7 All NBA teams, 5 more All NBA teams with Vince, that's disappointing. Shout out to Alex Sports, appreciate you. Go subscribe to his channel. T Mac was a better shooter than Kobe, arguably, but Kobe was a better scorer. Well, if we're going to say that, let's go into Kobe. And then then that would basically say that Kobe was a better volume scorer than T Mac. And Kobe was consistently shooting 45, 46%. Because this to me is what got Vince Carter jealous right here. You look at Kobe, led the league in scoring twice. Tracy McGrady was able to do that. Vince Carter really never led the league in scoring. Kobe made 18 All-Star teams in 20 seasons. Vince Carter made 8 in 21. and which was 7 for Tmac, but Tmac had injuries. And it's crazy how Kobe was able to play with some of the injuries he played with. That would have kept him out a lot longer with some of the seasons. He won 5 NBA titles. Obviously, he has 3 with Shaq. He was able to win 2 with Powell, but Kobe was driven to win. I can't say the same case with T-Mac and Vince Carter. Kobe made 15 All NBA teams. T-Mac made 7. Vince only made 2. Ugh. Kobe was on the All Rookie team, first team. Kobe made 12 defensive All NBA defensive teams. He made 3 second team and 9 first team. Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter didn't make any in their career. Um, Kobe, you can even at least say was the best player in 4 All-Star games too. 4 All-Star games MVP. Not as big, but he's got hardware. And Kobe was actually the best player in an NBA season in 2007, 2008. You know, I felt like uh, Vince and T Mac, at least at times, they showed that they were at least some of the top 10 best scorers in the NBA. But when it came to overall players, that's the thing. Vince Vince said he wanted to be known more than a dunker, but the problem is, as Ron said earlier in the stream, it took him a long time to hone his skill set to show that he was more than just a dunker. That's what happens when you're athletic and when you only focus on dunking. And then with Tracy McGrady, he really cared about more so scoring. But that's what said that it's more disappointing that Vince, in 600 more games, T Mac was able to make more All NBA teams than you did and just made one less All Star game. But it tells you how popular Vince was too, because in 2003 he only played 43 games, but he still made an All Star team. He was pretty popular, but it's pretty popular. And Kobe played 20 years with one franchise, whereas T Mac and Vince, they, you know, they were pretty much mercenaries with the teams they played with, 8 and 7. And again, go subscribe to Alice Sports. Appreciate Caden coming through. Make sure to go subscribe to Caden Alvis's channel. You think he's the second greatest scorer ever? Maybe third? Well, when it comes to total points, Kobe's fourth. But it's your opinion. Caden says, do you think Vince Carter is in the top 20 players of all time? Absolutely not. That's a simple no. Vince is nowhere near the top 20. Had Vince and T-Mac tried to focus on being better players and had they won, and if you look at the hardware, if you look at the accolades that they could have accomplished, we will never know. These two are what ifs. And just give me 1 second. And that's why I said that I wonder how Vince and T-Mac would have pushed each other had they stayed together in Toronto. And I think as long as you keep that core of T-Mac and Vince, you're looking at a paradigm for the future. You're looking at two guys who can play multiple positions in terms of
started that whole wing dynamic that we see now, and especially with the LeBron James and Dwayne Wade era with the Heat, you would probably saw the first, especially now with Kawhi and PG.
Yeah, because to be honest with you, if you look at what LeBron and Dwayne Wade accomplished in Miami, and you look at a lot of the dynamic duos that are now out now, in terms of wings, T Mac and Vince Carter could have really been
They would have needed
this.
to come out more defensively.
They would have been the modern day. They actually would have been the too early version of what LeBron and Dwayne Wade became in Miami in terms of the wings. And the thing is, they both actually could have switched positions because they both could play shooting guard and small forward. So yeah, guys, getting back, T Mac to me, he had to me Scottie Pippen and Penny Hardaway type ability. It's just T Mac did not commit on the defensive end. That was his problem. Um, I don't even think Vince is top 50. Vince is not a top 50 player. I don't think so. I don't think so. the thing that Vince accumulated was he was able to accumulate points over the career, and like I said, he has impact on Canadian basketball. But when it comes to impact on teams, Vince only had one time in where in a playoff series as the main guy, he could have gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals, and he didn't do that. And then if you look at Tracy McGrady's career, T-Mac, you could say that yeah, he didn't have the greatest of teammates, but they did have some injuries. It's funny, you could make the case that T-Mac would have been close to 50 wins in 2002 and 2003, those times. And V. Davis says T-Mac probably would have scored over 26,000 if he would have stayed healthy. Yeah, yeah, no, you could definitely make the case that T-Mac would have definitely been above 20,000, 25K. Vince was able to do it through 22 years. And he had to reinvent himself as a role player. I think T-Mac, to me, had more prime years in him had he been healthy. So he definitely would have been one of the greatest scorers of all time. He was definitely one of the best in his time, for sure. And give me 1 second. So another thing with Vince Carter was when he went to New Jersey, when he got traded there, Jason Kidd was still playing at a solid level. Not in terms of his prime, because at that point Jason Kidd had microfracture surgery. So, and microfracture is very difficult to recover from in terms of how you play in your prime. Uh, but J Kidd was, I believe, 32 years old when he had that knee injury. And then Richard Jefferson was a potential All Star during the 2000s because he was starting to average 20 points a game. But the problem with Vince is, again, he never committed to defense. J Kidd has made defensive teams. I believe J Kidd made an all defensive team. I believe about anywhere from 5 to 8 times, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just check J Kidd real quick, the person he played with. Um, as I check, shout out to everybody in the chat. Make sure you guys share. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to like the video. Let me look at Jason Kidd real quick. Wow, his middle name is Frederick. Oof. Yeah, look, Jason Kidd made 9 all defensive teams. 9. 9. Jason Kidd, Jason Kidd at the very least, man. Vince Carter, you could have helped him out, man, but you did not do that. Vince Carter never committed to defense. Um, Let me see. Well, that's what Vince was able to do like in his later years. He proved to show veteran leadership, something that he should have been doing for a long time. Eye test, I never seen somebody give Kobe buckets consistently like McGrady. Yeah, T Mac was a difficult matchup for Kobe. Kobe says that T Mac was his hardest matchup, other than probably Kevin Durant, who I would think about. But that was his hardest matchup. And we're talking about in their primes. Yeah, of unfulfilled potential. Shout out to Poseidon Swag. Facts. Eye test will tell you that Kobe was better than T Mac. Those are facts. T Mac was fun to watch. Yeah, T Mac was fun to watch. I loved him in Orlando. Okay, I was wrong. Kobe was a better shooter than T Mac because he can pick his spots. Yeah, Kobe can score in so many different ways and get to his spot. Vince has veteran leadership. I know Kobe's better, but when they were rivals, you could argue that McGrady was better. T Mac almost teamed with Jordan. Yeah, he was almost traded to Chicago. Well, actually, he was almost traded. Yeah, he was obviously almost traded for Scottie Pippen. There was a trade in place that would send Scottie, and that was because Scottie was having issues with his contract, but that was because Scottie had signed that big deal, but that was mostly on Scottie. People think that KD is a better scorer than Kobe. I felt that rule was ridiculous because Corey had more offensive arsenals than KD. I think KD is a more effortless scorer than Kobe Bryant. KD is a little more effortless than Kobe Bryant and more efficient. When you talk about Kobe, I think was a more prolific scorer, but I think that KD is a more proficient scorer than Kobe Bryant? How is a top five skill player with 5 rings not top five of all time and has a two-way player? The thing is, you only look at that 6 foot 200. You don't look at other factors, bro. That's the problem. You're only looking at it from that aspect. That's why I don't care if you have Kobe in the top five. That's fine with me. I'm just saying I look at other factors. You have to look at other factors when you value a player. You're only looking at it as a saying that Kobe's top five because he's a top five skilled player. That's one category. You have to look at other categories when you're determining a player. And everybody is subjective when it comes to how they value a player. You your thing is how you value a player. The way I value a player is different on how you value him. That's different. KD might be harder to guard than Kobe, but I think Kobe's a better scorer. Okay. The King says T-Mac is a better scorer than Vince Carter, which I agree with. Just as good, if not better, on defense than Vince. He shot, and he was an even better playmaker. T Mac was a better defender than Vince, but I still feel that T Mac, he was not a great defender, but compared to Vince Carter, the King, he was better than Vince. Compared to Vince Carter, yes. But T Mac was never really a good defender. But compared to Vince Carter, yes. I agree with you there. VC's final shot will be legendary. Unfortunately, we won't get to see that, Caden, because Vince retired already. And and it's crazy. Yeah. So no, G Money. I think he was talking about me. He was talking about me. Kobe's clearly top five. Top five skilled players, 5 ranks, and a two-way player. Again, you got to look at other factors, my man. VC is barely top 50. Yeah, he's barely. I disagree. KD relies more on perimeter shooting, and Kobe has a lot of skills offensively. It is just it is just facts. Kobe is clearly a top five scorer. No, it took KD. It took him a while to really develop. It took him, years to develop his game, obviously. But he proved that he can score right away the minute he came in. But like I said before, I said that Kobe to me is more prolific when it comes to scoring in terms of more prolific output. I think KD is more proficient, which means he could do it much more efficiently. Uh, I think what Kobe does get slighted for when it comes to his field goal percentages, they just only look at him as a bad shot taker. In some part, he is. Uh, he could have improved on his shot selection a little bit. I'm not going to say totally, but I think what was impressive for Kobe when it comes to him was that he was able to consistently shoot 45% in his prime while he was taking those difficult shots. For him to shoot 45, 46% in his prime years, yes, I agree. Kobe is a top five scorer. KD is top 10. I mean, and there's still more basketball left, man. The biggest flaw of T Mac was that he never got past the first round in his prime. I feel like T Mac's biggest case for me was 2003, especially with the Detroit Pistons. That to me was probably the biggest thing because T Mac in the first 4 games played really well. Some people would say T Mac never really had the teammates. You have to look at 2003. You went up 3-1 against the Detroit Pistons. Detroit never should have been down 3-1 in the first place. But T Mac made the comment before the start of game 5. And I was speaking to this to the sports critic, and shout out to the sports critic wherever he is. And make sure you guys go subscribe to his channel. But he said, T Mac, he said it was finally good to be on a team that could get to the second round. Tracy McGrady, you should have made sure that you got the job done. See, that was the thing. That was the thing. You should have looked at that, and then you should have gotten the job done with the team and win in Detroit. And if you didn't get it done in game 5, you had home court in game 6. Take care of that. T Mac shot terrible from the field the last 3 games, and Detroit ended up moving on. That's a big dark hole in T Mac's career because that happened in his prime. And he led the league in scoring that year at 32 a game. Exactly. People look at efficiency and not overall game and skill. G Money says Nash is more efficient than Curry, but Curry is a better scorer than Steve Nash. Well, absolutely. When you compare those two, yeah. The funny thing is, I would say that Curry is a more efficient 3-point shooter when it comes to his volume, because Curry is a career 40% 3-point shooter at the volume of threes he takes. Nash doesn't take the amount of threes that he takes, um, which is a good point. LeBron is a more efficient scorer than Kobe, but Kobe's still a better scorer. I mean, you have to also look at you got to look into factors. Hold on, guys. I'll be right back. Sorry, guys. I'm back. I just had to look at something on TV. So I am back. Um, so yeah. So going back to 6 foot 200's point, where he says that LeBron is more efficient than Kobe, still a better scorer. The thing with LeBron's efficiency, if we really want to look at it, yeah, he has field goal percentages of 50% or higher. But when you put things into proper context, Kobe actually shoots better from the perimeter than LeBron does. And when we compare careers, LeBron is more efficient because he gets into the paint. If you look at his percentage, but that's why I said that when you guys have to break down games and eye test, there's things you got to look at. When comparing those two. I just felt that what LeBron brought to the table. Now, when you look at Kobe, you can make the case. He has a lot of accomplishments. Same thing with LeBron. Um, but again, it depends on who you feel is better. So that's always going to be LeBron and Kobe versus Kobe. That's always going to be an argument. Same thing with Kobe versus Jordan, LeBron versus Jordan. It's always going to continue to be an argument. It's because of who people prefer as their favorite player. So people think that Bron is a better scorer than Carmelo. Melo has more offensive moves than Bron. Melo can jab step, bang down low, can post up and drill the mid range and the 3-point shot. They just go by the stats. Tmac was great in Houston. Yeah, it's just unfortunately with Tmac, he was never able to stay healthy in Houston. And it sucks that he never got out the first round because him and Yao, for some reason, they always got injured at the wrong time. It sucks. But I feel like T-Mac finally would have gotten out of the first round had it not been for some key injuries. I think 2007 though was probably the one time that I could say that in Houston was probably where T-Mac also hurt himself in terms of that first round. Kyrie is a better scorer than LeBron. People don't watch watch the games. That's a good point. Okay. Um, let me just check. Give me 1 second. Shout out to Mile High. He says, "Go Raptors." Actually, Mile High. I actually got to do a future. I'm actually going to do a future video on your Toronto Raptors and their expectations, where they're going to be at in the Eastern Conference, when things come back. In my opinion, Kobe is harder to guard than KD because KD is more predictable than Kobe. Hmm. I might actually do a future video on that. G Money. That's actually very interesting. Carter deserves next year's 2K cover. Are you talking about 2022? Because already the cover athletes so far are going to be Zion Williamson for 2K21, Zion Williamson, uh, Damian Lillard, and ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you guys heard, but Kobe. I'm actually going to put a picture of Kobe in this on this stream. I thought it'd be pretty cool. Kobe is actually going to be the cover athlete for the Legends Edition. It's called Mamba Edition. He's getting a number 8 and a number 24 on the 2K21 cover. And shout out to 2K for you know, giving him that respect, giving him that respect for him to be able to get that. I thought that was pretty cool for them to do that. Let me just I want to put that out. I'm actually going to put the image. Let me see if I can do that. I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm actually gonna put the cover on here for you guys. I know this is about Vincent T Mac, but I wanted to put that on here. Let me see if it fits. And also, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to like the video on later on because This is the cover for you guys. This is the cover for 2K right here for 2K21. The one is going to be number 8 and one is going to be 24. That's what the cover is going to look like. What makes Kobe the better player than T-Mac was the defensive end and durability, because you could go either way offensively, although I'll give Kobe the edge. I would give a slight edge to Kobe because it's like I said before, the perimeter shots that Kobe was able to hit in his prime at 45, 46%. T-Mac T-Mac was not able to consistently do that over a period of time. It was just really in T-Mac's prime, but T-Mac was still very good. So there's no question about that. There's no question about that. Um, And again, shout out to Mile High Six Sports. And if you guys can do that, make sure you go subscribe to Mile High Six Sports. He's producing pretty good content over there himself, and he's getting closer to 700 subscribers. And I want to push Mile High to 700 subscribers. So if you guys could do me the favor and go, subscribe to his channel, I would truly appreciate that. So I had to put that out of respect for my man Kobe Bean. Kobe has 23 50-point games and 6 60-point games. KD has 6 and 0 60-point games in his career. KD is more effortless, but Kobe is clearly a better scorer because he has more moves. Kobe's more skilled than KD. KD has skills, and the thing is, KD said he saw Kobe when it comes to where KD get kind of patterns his game. He watches guys like MJ, Kobe, and Kyrie because of their skills. He loves their skill set. So yeah, Kobe to me is a much. KD may have won 4 scoring titles, and he may be a much more efficient scorer than Kobe, but I think Kobe is a better scorer than Kevin Durant. Uh, People think that KD can beat T-Mac one-on-one. Can't. T-Mac has a better mid-range game, post game, and footwork, and was more athletic. T-Mac was harder to stop. So the B Davis 231, you actually got me thinking about a future video. Who's more? I actually would love to do that, man. Mm, that'd be interesting. You guys are giving me some good ideas in terms of the whole scoring thing, but between these guys, I might create a future thumbnail for that one. Um, T-Mac, the King says T-Mac should have went past the first round at least once in his career. I feel like his best chances were 2003 and 2007. McGrady's Magic's teams were trash. The thing is with T-Mac in the Eastern Conference, because remember how we said that the Eastern Conference has been pretty weak for a pretty long time. So when I look at that, it almost makes it seem like for me that it's possible that the that T-Mac could have definitely 2003 was his best shot when you look at what he was with Orlando. The problem with some of his teammates is they missed a lot of games during the regular season. So when you look at it, they possibly could have won more games. T-Mac was winning what 44, 42 win seasons, but his teammates missed a lot of games those 2 seasons. And T-Mac should have beaten Detroit back in 2003. Again, guys, smash the like, hit the subscribe on this video. T-Mac should have beaten the Pistons in 03. He should have beaten the Mavs. Yeah, the Mavs is another one in 2005, and the Jazz in 2007. I would say 03, 05, and 2007 were T-Mac's best chances to get out the first round. He should have beaten the Jazz at least once in 07. I would have said 2007 more so. He had a 3-1 lead. I agree. Come on, give him a break. Oh no, but see, here's the thing, 6 foot 200. If you're saying that, then you're gonna have to say that about a couple of other players in that case. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we tend to show kind of biases sometimes. The thing is, T-Mac did not shoot the ball well in the last 3 games after shooting the ball well in the first 4. And T-Mac should have never made those comments where he said that it was finally nice to go to the second round. T-Mac got to get it done. I'm sorry. Yeah, I will never understand that. Jamal Mashburn was injured, and they lost to the Hornets. They lost in 4 games. Go Raps. 2005 could have been a good year for Houston. No major injuries, and they were evenly matched with the Mavs. They got blown out in Game 7. They only scored 76 points. Yeah, that's another thing that's gonna hurt when it comes to T-Mac's career. Kobe, you could argue that if the Magic advanced out of the first round in 2002 and 2003, you never know. They might have made. Mm, mm, okay, let's see. 2002, they would have faced the New Jersey Nets. I say the Nets still beat them probably in 6 games in 2002. 2003, the Pistons would have faced. Oh wait, if T Mac advances against Detroit, he would have faced Allen Iverson and the Sixers. That team had him and Keith Van Horn. So then let me ask you a question, G Money. If T Mac if T Mac would have faced the Nets in 2002, who did you have coming out of that series? And then T Mac would have faced the Sixers in 2003. That would have put him T Mac against AI. That would have been a really nice matchup. Wins that series if you think they would have made the NBA Finals? Also, Kobe's documentary is coming out on Sunday. That's right. This Sunday, I'm actually going live for that. So make sure I'm actually going to put the stream for that. So I'm actually going live for those documentaries. I think Clutch Points is the one that's doing it, not the network. I want number 8. Number 8 was actually my favorite just for the athleticism. Number 24 was a more refined, polished Kobe. Better leader. Victor Oladipo. Oh, shout out to Ryan in the building. Shout out to Raduni. Appreciate you. He says Victor Oladipo and Bradley Beal might not play. Yeah, I heard about that. Victor Oladipo, his is more so the injury. I would test it. I would if again, it's up to him. G Money says you could make a case Baron Davis. He's got KD in that matchup. KD can score, but if you use the eye test, T Mac is a better scorer because he is more unpredictable than Kevin Durant. T Mac, Kobe was an elite scorer in the most defensive era ever. Yeah, if you look at the toughest defensive eras from 97 to 2004, T Mac was very smooth on his skills. I'm actually going to come up with some highlight videos of T Mac. If I can find some, I'll put them up. Magic only lost by 1 game in game 1 and by 10 in game 3 in overtime. Orlando should have beaten Charlotte in 2002. And like I said, he definitely should have beaten them in 2003 with Detroit. Got to get it done. Appreciate that, man. He says everybody in here knows their b-ball. Nice discussion. All right, shout out to 6 foot 200. And he says number 8 is my favorite. Yeah, I love number 8 Kobe. The championship years, 2000 from 2000 to 2000, and my favorite Kobe, if I had to pick one year, would have to be 03. 2003 Kobe is my favorite Kobe out of all the years. It was my favorite because that was the first time that I really saw Kobe have an all-around season where you got to really see his all-around game. He gave you 7 assists. He gave you 7 rebounds. He gave you 30 points per game. Uh, this was when, for me, the legend of Kobe got to grow. You got to see the 9-game, 40-point streak. You got 13 straight games of 35 points or more. Um, Kobe was actually putting up a lot of pretty good numbers in under 40 minutes. I remember there was a game against Denver in 03 where he put up 51 points in about 35, 36 minutes. That's some pretty damn good efficiency, to be able to do that. Philly would have been Orlando. 2003, he could have at least reached the Eastern Conference Finals. 2007, he could have reached the Western Conference Finals because whoever came out of that series were going to beat the Warriors. Yeah, the Warriors, they were just riding momentum off of beating Dallas, but that was because Dallas was a bigger team and Golden State was a more athletic team. So their athleticism and their and their transition play really gave Dirk Nowitzki and that team problems. G Money says that Magic would have beaten the Nets in 2002, but it would have been tough versus the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. If Orlando beats Detroit, I think they beat Philly, and I believe they beat New Jersey in 2003. Okay, now my next question for you, G Money, is what makes you say that? I think with the Magic, their case to go to the Eastern Conference Finals would have been in 2003 for me. 2003. 2002, no. I think that they would have beaten Philly in '03, but I think in 2002 they still would have lost to New Jersey at that time. Ryan says, who has the better handle, Kyrie or Baron Davis in their prime? Yeah, B Diddy's handles was nice in his day. The Nets were kind of overrated and weren't as good in 2003 compared to 2002. I disagree. Ryan says 2001 Kobe is my favorite. He was on a tear that year in the playoffs. Oh yeah. I wonder why the Nets were trash versus the Lakers but took the Spurs to 6. That's a very good question because the guards were better on the Spurs in 2003, but for some reason the net pushed them to 6 games. But then against the '02 Lakers, they got swept. Well, here's the thing though with San Antonio. The reason being is because with the Nets, they had to deal with a dominant perimeter player and a dominant inside player. The 2003 team, there were more role players. Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, they were very quick at the guard position, but they weren't dominant. They more so they just blended in with the big men of Robinson and Duncan. So I think that's why the Nets were able to push him because again, the Spurs were more predicated on their bigs and the role players were able to hit some like big 3-point shots because the offense ran to Duncan and Robinson, whereas the Lakers went through Kobe and Shaq. I wonder why the Nets were trash versus the Lakers but took the Spurs to 6. T-Mac has the same mentality as LeBron. They both care so much about the excuse before thinking about the solution. Interesting. What makes it worse for T-Mac was in 2009 when he was out, the Rockets made it to the second round and took the Lakers to 6 games, if I remember. Actually, you're on the right track, the King. They took him to 7 games. And what people forget is Yao Ming got injured in game 3 of that series. And people forget that without T-Mac and they brought in Ron Artest, they played well as a team and they defended the Lakers so well that the Lakers only scored 91 points at home in game 1. Uh, Ryan, yeah, those Nets Laker games were actually close. Well, if you look at games 3 and 4 and game 1, game 2 was really the only blowout, but games 3 and 4 were actually pretty close. No, I'm talking about the 2009 Houston Rockets. They took the Lakers to 7 games, and I'm saying that was without T-Mac. Ron Artest was on the team. I think if T-Mac were there, the Rockets possibly the Rockets they were deep. They could have had a chance to probably go to the Western Conference Finals. You can make the case they probably go to the NBA Finals. I wonder what could have been with that 2019 going up against the Nuggets. Let's see. Yeah, if you look at the Nets, yeah, they were actually they were the 3 of the 4 games were actually pretty close. Um, okay, shout out. Philly wasn't as good in 2003 compared to 2001. They did lose Matumbo. T-Mac would have gotten layups against Philly. New Jersey is up and down in close games and don't have a reliable go-to score. I can see your point. Yeah. Also, people forget that the Nets had a 10-point lead in Game 3. The Nets were up by as many as 10 in Game 3 in that game. They had an 8-point lead at the start, and then also to the start of the fourth quarter, the Nets were playing well. Philly wasn't as good in 2003 compared to 2001. Yeah, I thought their 0-3 team was a lot weaker. Nets only lost by 5 by 3 and 6 in games 1, 3, and 4 in 2002. I still remember they lost, I believe it was 110-107 in game 3. They lost by 6 in game 4, and they lost by 5 in game 1, which tells you that the Nets, see, I think that they always just go by the fact that, oh, they faced the weakest competition ever. It would have been that way had the Lakers blew them out, because the Lakers, they had more convincing wins against the Sixers than they honestly did with the Nets. So the Lakers were actually 3 out of the 4 games in the sweep were actually pretty competitive. Kind of makes you think about the Warriors and the Blazers, doesn't it? Yeah. So again, shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to Valix. Appreciate you coming through, man. Good dude. And if you guys can, go subscribe to Valix's channel. He's gonna be starting his channel up pretty soon with some content. So go subscribe to Valix, man. Again, guys, share this on your social media. And I appreciate you calling me the GOAT. I appreciate that. Um, as always. G Money says, if T-Mac and Yao were healthy, I felt the Rockets would have won the title in 2009. Well, let's see. They faced Dwight Howard, right? They would have been facing Dwight Howard. That means that they would have gone through Kobe and they would have gone through Melo. And the Rockets did face Brandon Roy in the first round and the Blazers with LaMarcus Aldridge. You know what, G Money? You might be onto something. The Rockets possibly could have won the NBA title because they would have had T Mac fully healthy with the scoring. Ron Artest is there with the defense. Yao Ming at the center position, being the beast that he was. The Rockets were deep. They had some good, solid interior play with Luis Scola. You know what? The Rockets could have possibly. It's possible because I think they would have neutralized the Denver Nuggets with Carmelo Anthony. The Rockets and Nuggets actually would have been an interesting Western Conference Finals to watch. Fully healthy, you're talking about the dynamic duo of. I might do a future video on that. Excuse me. I might have to try to see if I can fit this in the thumbnail somehow. I might have to create a thumbnail on that for the future. Um, Karam says, shout out to him. He says Zion on the 2K21 cover doesn't make any sense at all. I feel you on that. Yeah, 2009 was really a what if year. Crazy, right? 2009 NBA season. What if Zion on the 2K21 cover doesn't make sense? Well, they're marketing Zion. It's all because of what he did at Duke, what he's doing for the Pelicans now, and his projection. That's why they're doing it. Would you like to see the Sixers versus the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA Finals? Are you talking about in 2003? That means AI would have had another crack at the title, but I think he would have lost to Tim Duncan. That means that AI would have lost to Kobe and Shaq, and then he would have lost to Tim Duncan. That means AI would have lost to two top 10 big all time bigs. People would have also said right there that, man, AI went up against two top 10 all time bigs, and he didn't have a second reliable scorer to go with him. The Nets should have won games 3 and 4 at home. Oh, I agree. I agree. The Nets' issues in games 3 and 4 were the fourth quarter. It was the fourth quarter. Philly would beat the Orlando Magic because of their defensive system and have 4 players to take care of T-Mac. Hmm. But remember, Dikembe Mutombo wasn't on that team. Tom McCulloch wasn't on that team either. Again, shout out to everybody in the chat. The Rockets would have made at least one finals appearance if both T-Mac and Yao were both healthy. I feel like that year was 2009, just for the fact that they were very deep. That was the deepest team that T-Mac had ever been on, but he wasn't. Unfortunately, he wasn't healthy. Again, guys, smash the like, hit that subscribe for the Lewis Sports Network on this video. We got 12 people watching. Hopefully, we could get more people watching. I just put the Kobe cover right here for 2K just for remembrance to commemorate and honor Kobe. I know this is supposed to be a Vince Carter T-Mac video. You have good points, but I think T-Mac would have adjusted in 2003. This is really going to depend on T-Mac's work ethic because if you look at T-Mac's work ethic, it really wasn't that great in 2000, in that career. Shout out to the Sports Critic. Go subscribe to the Sports Critic channel if you guys have not done that yet. I beg of you, I urge you, subscribe to the Sports Critic. Make sure to go subscribe to the Sports Critic. He is producing great content, and I really do enjoy his Precision podcast. I think it's a really nice fitting name, for your live streams when he does it. He does 2K in Madden. He does 2K in with basketball. He talks basketball. He talks football. At one time, he did talk about movies. Hopefully, he brings back his movie critic series. I would love that. And like I said, I would love to talk movies with you in the future. But if you guys have not subscribed, go subscribe to the Sports Critic. He's producing great content over there. And I know he's also trying to get to 1,000 subscribers like I am. And hopefully, we can all get there. Like I said, I'm all about pushing the YouTubers, man, the small YouTubers, man, because we want to make it big out here. G Money says that Nets actually led by 7 in the fourth in game three. The biggest lead of the game for them was 8, but yeah, they were up by as many as 7. And again, Valix is the GOAT for coming on here. Appreciate that. The Nets nearly overcame a 24 power point deficit in game one, but they didn't execute down the stretch. Key Van Horn playing horrible in that series, and I felt that he was too tentative for the moment. I felt like the moment was too much for him. I felt like he was kind of in awe of going up against Kobe and Shaq. I can just tell. I agree with the King. 2009 probably might be a future video of mine. I'm gonna have to write that down as a what if year. I would love to see the 2008 version of the Rockets, T-Mac and Yao healthy, versus the Nuggets in the 2009 Western Conference Finals. That's cool. I like that. You're looking at potential matchups right there. Again, guys, make sure you guys share this on your social media outlets, man. And let me just go through the contents. Excuse me. Let me go through the comments. I said content. I'm like, what? Ooh, the King. You're absolutely right on that, and I'm glad you mentioned that because the Boston Celtics would be talked about much more different had Kevin Garnett not gotten injured. What if T-Mac didn't get injured? LeBron versus Kobe, or the Lakers against the Celtics rematch with the Celtics arguably winning 7 games. I'm at the King. You are speaking major, major facts. A future video of mine is going to be the 2009 What If. I like that idea. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Great idea. Also, you could even make the case, what if Jameer Nelson was fully healthy for the Magic? I mean, because he was not 100% during that time. In my opinion, 2009 Magic were worse than the 2018 Cavs because Orlando were up and down, and they had less expectations than Cleveland. I guess you're looking at it from an eye test, but the Magic did win 59 games that year, G Money. Rashard Lewis and Hito Turkoglu played very well in that postseason run up until they went against the Lakers. Um, the Magic were in a lot of close games the first 3 rounds of of the playoffs. But I will say that I don't know if they beat Boston with a fully healthy KG. So that is a what if going back to what the King was saying. But they did win 59 games and they were one of the better defensive teams in the league. Damn, we also missed out on LeBron versus Wade too. Yeah, that's another thing. We missed LeBron versus Kobe, LeBron versus potentially D Wade. We missed out the Rockets if they were fully healthy, Boston Celtics if they were fully healthy, Jameer Nelson if he was fully healthy for the Orlando Magic. There's a lot of what ifs. So the King, I thank you for that. My brother and I were talking about the 2K21 cover last night. Possibly King, 2018 season had plenty of what ifs too. We could have had a Celtics Rockets NBA Finals. You could even say Celtics Warriors too. Kyrie up against Steph Curry. We could have had James Harden up against Kyrie Irving. CP Kyrie against CP3. What if Gordon Hayward was healthy? We would have had a Gordon Hayward and Kyrie going up against a CP3 James Harden NBA final. And then Klay Thompson. Um, Again, shout out to this T Mac was much better in his prime than Vince. I agree. Good point. 2006. I would love to see the 2009 Nuggets and the Rockets with T-Mac and yeah, that's actually a what if in the Western Conference Finals. T-Mac and Yao against Carmelo and Chauncey Billups. And people forget that Chauncey Billups, when he got traded there, they ended up going to that actually extended Chauncey Billups' trip to the Western Conference Finals for at least one more. I mean, to a conference finals, I should say, for at the very least one more year. So that was big. Let's see. Sports Critic says thank you. He says, "How are you? I'm doing great. How are you doing? Hope everything is good with you." Uh, Same here, no doubt. Sports Critic says, "Lewis, I would like for you to come on the Precision Podcast sometime." Oh, absolutely. I would more than be happy. I'll talk to you about it on Twitter, and we could definitely set things up, for a future Precision Podcast. Awesome. We nearly had a Celtics Kings NBA Finals in 2002, but both of them choked. I think it would have been that actually would have been interesting. That's actually another what if that I have to think about. What if we would have saw a Kings Boston Celtics in the 2002 NBA Finals? Would it have been watchable? Um, but G Money, I do like your idea on the what if in 2010s. I also do like the what if in 2009 too. I think those 2 years, well, the 2010s is really more so in the decade, but G Money, that is a good idea. But I really do like 2009 for the fact that how would we be talking about T Mac and Yao Ming? How would we be talking about Carmelo Anthony? How would we have been talking about Dwight Howard too? Had that happened, we look at the potential matchups. What if KG's healthy and the Boston Celtics repeat? Would we have seen a trilogy, three straight? Would we have seen for the first time in NBA history for a long time in a while the Boston Celtics against the Los Angeles Lakers for three consecutive NBA Finals, '08, '09, and 2010. So there's a lot of what ifs. Also, the King says the Hawks beat the Heat and faced the Cavs in the semifinals. That's true. That's true. Because if let's say Dwayne Wade and the Hawks they win, guess what? LeBron would have faced D Wade in the second round. That's really big. Very big. Um, Kenya Martin was awesome in 2002, but he was garbage in 2003 NBA Finals. Yeah, Kenya Martin played great in the '02 Finals, but he was trash in '03. And the crazy part is, if he plays better, the Nets are pushing this to. You know what's so crazy about that 2003 NBA Finals, and it was actually one of the more lower rated NBA Finals. The Nets could have won in Game 6. They just blew a 15-point lead. And I believe at the start of the fourth quarter, they were up by as many as 10 before Steven Jackson started to go nuts and hit some big shots in the fourth quarter of Game 6 in '03. But the Nets, despite Kenya Martin playing poorly, they could have pushed it to a Game 7, which tells me that they possibly could have beaten the Spurs in the finals had they won. And how would we have been talking about Jason Kidd? He is in the Hall of Fame, but how would we have been talking about him all time had Jay Kidd's less talented New Jersey Nets beat Tim Duncan's San Antonio Spurs? Because remember, Jay Kidd was thinking about going to San Antonio the very next year, but he ended up signing an extension with New Jersey. Because then what would that have meant for Tony Parker's career if Jason Kidd had signed? Remember, Jason Kidd was in his prime from in '02 and '03 and so. Appreciate that sports critic sharing it on the Twitter. You should do a 2010s what if video. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir. Looking forward to that video. No, I appreciate it, man. Again, guys, smash the like, hit the subscribe, and share. The sports critic says the Magic were better. Yeah, they were, in my personal opinion. Also, Cleveland had more talent than Orlando. Hmm Are you talking about 2009? I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Dwight Howard was unstoppable this year. And he says, LOL, yeah, they were. The Magic were better. 2009 Celtics against the Spurs, KG healthy. What's funny about that is I remember when I got NBA 2K8, people were asking, what do you think about people were all making simulated predictions as the Spurs were going to play the Celtics in the finals. Duncan against KG. It would have been the battle of the power forwards. That's something that you don't really see when it comes to NBA finals play. The battle of the power forwards. If you look at these NBA finals, it's been a lot of wings lately. The Rockets should have been in the finals in 2018. Orlando was better in the regular season, but not the playoffs. Orlando was pushed to 6 by Philly, and Iggy hit a game winner in game one. Also, they were pushed to 7 to a KG less Celtics team. I do agree with that, but they had the lead at halftime and they blew it. Facts, Karam. Houston didn't execute. Bad officiating, lack of adjustments, and injuries cost them an NBA Finals appearance. You could say all that. You could say all that. The refs cheated the Rockets in Game 7 and still had an opportunity to win. See, the 2018 Rockets almost has a little bit of the case of the '02 Kings in a sense. In a sense. In a sense. Only difference is that the only player that the Kings really had injured was Peja Stojakovic. So the Rockets, it was a little bit different with them because Chris Paul was the point guard, and it hurt not having him on there. I actually might even do a video on the 2018 Western Conference Finals and go back when you look at the total of that, just like how I did with the '02 Lakers and Kings. And I continue to say this that despite the fact that the Kings so-called got robbed, they had much more opportunities than people realized to win that series. They just didn't get it done. We nearly had an OKC Houston in 2018, but OKC choked to Utah in the first round. The 2011 Bulls against the Lakers in the NBA Finals. Well, that's if the Lakers got by Dallas, and if the Bulls had gotten by the Miami Heat, we would have saw Derrick Rose against Kobe. And the thing is now, Derrick would have had more pressure because Jordan was already saying that Derrick was going to win championships for the years to come, putting all that pressure on D Rose, which I thought was unfair on Jordan's part. Yeah, we did have a Braun versus Harden almost. Again, guys, smash the like, hit the subscribe, and share. You guys are doing awesome in the chat. Awesome basketball knowledge in the chat. Salute to you guys. Celtics and the Rockets '09 finals if healthy. Hmm. Tmac and Yao against Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen. I think that would have been an interesting series. I also think that Tmac and Yao against Dwight Howard and Jameer Nelson would have kind of been interesting too. Nets had Keith Van Horn. Yeah, we would be talking about Kobe's career differently had Kobe had only four or even not winning a championship in '08 to '10. That's true. That's true. That's why I think that the 2010 NBA Finals was crucial for Kobe's legacy. It really was because as great of a career Kobe had, people really would be talking about him even more different had he only had one championship, and people weren't even really considering those NBA Finals against Orlando that series, even though Kobe did win because you still got to play to win. Houston would have beaten Golden State in 2015. The issue with Houston is they blew it, but that's my problem with James Harden. James Harden has been in so many of these. CG Money, that's the problem. When I look at James Harden, it's difficult to me to put him as a regular season player, top notch. But this is what I'm saying. With a point guard, he couldn't get it done. With a big man, he couldn't get it done. That's why I'm saying if James Harden doesn't win with Russell Westbrook, are you going to blame Russell Westbrook too? Or are you going to start to look at James Harden? Because he couldn't win with Dwight Howard. He couldn't win with Chris Paul. Then if he doesn't win with Russell Westbrook, are you sure that Russell Westbrook is going to be the problem? See, that's the problem. And that's why when you look at James Harden's career, he didn't show up in 2012 at all in the finals. He showed up against San Antonio, and it's crazy how much he was a difference maker against the Spurs, but you don't show up against the Miami Heat. That's just weird for me. What would happen if Indiana had drafted Kawhi and not George Hill? Were they able to beat the Miami Heat? That would have to depend on how Kawhi's development goes. Indiana was already a defensive team. They just lacked scoring other than Paul George. We could have had Clips against the Bulls in 2015. The Bulls, low key to me, kind of got screwed in that series in 2015. Not completely, but just a little bit. The Clips, they just blew it. They just blew it. We would have had Chris. We would have had Chris Paul against Steph Curry in the 2015 NBA Conference Finals. So yeah, G Money, you're absolutely right. We do have a lot of what ifs to cover. That's true. I'm not giving the Rockets a pass for that. You had a halftime lead, and then the second half they missed 27 straight threes. Where was it? Exactly, Karam. This is what I continue to continue to tell people about those 2018 Rockets. It would be one thing if Mike D'Antoni adjusted and they just happened to lose because you don't have Chris Paul out there. But you missed 27 straight threes. You had a halftime lead, and in game 6 and 7, you were up by double digits. I don't give them a pass for that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a fact. They could have. They had the talent. They just had to go garbage against Houston, and that was a more talented team than Houston. I don't understand that. OKC 2012 versus 2013 Pacers NBA Finals. I don't think anybody would have loved to seen that though. Big time. Clips upset. I don't see the Bulls making the NBA Finals as long as the Heat were around. I see that Ryan's mixing up some of these matchups. I think the Raps would have made the NBA Finals if Vince Carter hits the game winner, game 7. I think Toronto beats Milwaukee. I think the series would have won 7 games. I think with Vince Carter going up against Ray Allen. I think so. But I think Milwaukee edges them now because I just think that they have a little bit more fire. Toronto, to me, was the better defensive team. So I think that they could give the Bucks problems defensively, but I think ultimately with the offense of the Bucks, I think it would have been a little too much to handle. I think at the very end. Well, actually, no. Now that you know what, G Money, you might be right just for the fact that I think I might have to agree with you that one because you know why I say that? I say it because the Sixers were the number one defense, and they didn't have that much scoring. So if they were able to beat, but some people say that the Bucks got, they were they got screwed in those 7 games against Philly, especially when it comes to the foul shooting and the free throw attempts. Ray Allen has come out and said this many times, but I also say Ray Allen, you didn't play well in that. You should have did the job defensively. So you could make the case that they probably could have got there. The King says we would have been talking about a Clippers versus Golden State rivalry instead of the Rockets versus Golden State. Shout out to the Chiefs fan. Appreciate you being here. He says the 85 Bears or the 99 Rams. Good question. Who did the 99 Rams have on that team? They had Marshall Faulk. I think Torrey Holt was on that team. I think they had Isaac Bruce. Um, Kurt Warner was the quarterback. I know he took over for Trent Green because Trent Green ended up getting hurt and missed the whole season. And Kurt Warner ended up winning the MVP, taking his place. The Rams were pretty good defensively that year. I think they were the sixth overall best defense that year, and offensive. Well, actually, no, I think they were a slightly good defensive team. I think they were 11th or 12th overall when it came to defense, but I know offensively they were in the top 5. And then the 85 Bears, you got the 85 defense, that 46 defense. Sorry, that was the number one defense in the NFL. Damn, that's tough, man. I think that damn. Damn, and if you look at the tackling was when you look at the way defense was played in 85 compared to 99, I mean it was still tackling pretty hard in 99, but much harder in the 80s. Damn, that's tough, man. I wonder how the Rams would have been able to deal with the 46 defense. I wonder. I would go with the 85 Bears on this one, just for now. That was a missed rivalry. Yep. So Chiefs fan, I might go with the 85 Bears just because I wonder how the 99 Rams would have dealt with the 46 defense. We could have a Vince Carter, Ray Allen versus Kobe and Shaq NBA Finals in 2001. hmm I have to ask myself, how motivated would Vince Carter have been? How would Brady fare against the 85 Bears defense in the playoffs if he's still on the Pats? That's a good question because the 46 defense, yo, that was a very difficult defense to stop. I was hoping that G Money. Yeah, T-Mac is lucky that Vince made you missed that shot. You know why I say that? Because if Vince misses that shot, as he could have. Yeah, so yeah, let me just go back for a second. Apologize for that. We could have had Clips Blazers. If you think about it, damn, this almost beat San Antonio, and if they did, that would have been even worse for Team Mac had the Raptors went to the finals without him. True. LA Clippers should have beaten OKC in games 5 and 6. Okay, I take Bears too. Their defense was, yeah, that's the thing. That's the problem. I think the 99 Rams are clearly the better offensive team, especially with who's at quarterback when you're comparing Jim McMahon to Kurt Warner. But I can't. I don't know how the Rams were going to be able to deal with that defense. Dick Vermeil would have had a lot. He would have had a lot of. He had a lot of plate on his hands with that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of potential. Kawhi versus PG would have been fun. I wonder how that would have been G Money only for the fact that neither one of those guys were in their prime. If you take Kawhi now and Paul George now and fully healthy, and let's say we turn back the clock and put Kawhi now with the Spurs, and then you put the now Paul George with the Pacers, then I think it would have been interesting. But Paul George and Kawhi were not in their prime. Kawhi was a role player, and Paul George was starting to become the star. That was when he started to kind of clearly break out. 2016 finals should have been the Thunder and the Cavs. We would have had KD versus Bron. And again, shout out to Kobe with the Mamba with his cover. I'm actually gonna do that for Sunday stream. I'm actually gonna put that. So make sure you guys pull up on Sunday. I'm definitely gonna pull up and put that. But shout out to Kobe Bryant once again. G Money says if Parker and Kawhi were healthy, we could have a Spurs Cavs 2017 NBA Finals. Possible. The funny thing is, dang, I wonder who would have won that. The King says, now that I'm thinking of it, T-Mac should have stayed with the Magic and played with Dwight Howard because they became a better team without him. You know, T-Mac is very fortunate that the Raptors did not go to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2001, and he's unfortunate that when he left to the Rockets, they eventually became a better team. Eventually, man. Now that I'm thinking of it, yeah, 2016 or the '96 Bulls. I'm going '96 Bulls. G Money, don't remind me of that. Oh, where he says 2016 should have been. Yeah, 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 yeah. We don't want to go back to that. Yep, they were starting to slowly get pieces. Thunder should have went. Oh yeah, big time ball. Hmm. G Money was hoping to say that just so that he could go back and remind us again of what we already know. I tell you, man, he loves doing that. He doesn't like it. He loves it. Yeah. So the reason I'm putting Kobe on here, guys, is because once again, I felt like Kobe, Kobe was very Kobe just had the will and the drive to be great that Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady did not have, and to do it for a long period of time. So that's why I think that it hurts. It hurts because they definitely could have been better for sure. And I know this is Karam's problem that it doesn't make sense that this guy's on the cover. He shouldn't be, but he is, right? And G Money also says, big time, but OKC blew a 13-point lead in game 6 7. He says, if you think about it, OKC and Miami could have met in 2011 versus OKC, just executed against Dallas. Hmm. James Harden or Stephen Curry in terms of talent. In terms of talent, I would take I would take James Harden in terms of talent, but Steph Curry is the better player. T-Mac is the definition of an unlucky player. It's funny because when he first joined, this is the king now, the Magic, he was supposed to come with prime Grant Hill, but was injured with T-Mac. Yeah, T-Mac has probably had, I know people get on T-Mac and stuff like that, and I, to a certain degree, have gotten on T-Mac, but I think he's had one of the most unfortunate careers of anybody in NBA history. It's crazy how on the jump, he had found out that he was going to get Tracy McGrady, and I mean, I'm not sorry, not Tracy McGrady. He was going to possibly get Tim Duncan, and he never knew that. And the King also says right after he left, Grant Hill played enough games to become an All Star again in 2005. Mm-hmm. And that was when T Mac got traded, and he wasn't healthy during that time. Chiefs fans said Will Chamberlain or Bill Russell. Well, if you're taking offense, Will Chamberlain. If you're taking defense, Bill Russell. Take your pick. I would go with Will Chamberlain just because of how dominant he is, because he was actually able to do it on both ends. It's just the problem is Wilt was a tad bit selfish when it came to his NBA career. LeBron or Larry Bird, I choose Larry Bird. LeBron's great, but I like John Morant deserves Rookie of the Year more than Zion. Oh, absolutely. There's no question about that. No question about that at all. Again, guys, continue to smash the like. Continue to hit the subscribe button. Lewis Sports Network coming at you with an early stream today. Just had to put that Kobe cover on there, man, for the Kobe fans out there. Shout out to Ultimate Champ in the building, man. Appreciate you coming through. Again, guys, like and share. We should have a Kobe Bron 08, 09, and 010 finals. No, it was 2008. It was not going to happen. I do agree with you on 2009 and 2010 G Money, but 2008 it was not going to happen because as soon as you face the Celtics, you have to run into the Detroit Pistons, and I will say that their 2008 team was actually better than their 2017. Yeah, we should have. Yup, they went from rebuild to being competitive very fast. It's tough G Money because of time. And the thing is, because of to the other subscribers, also you got to also keep in mind with them too. A lot of these guys are not able to catch the early streams because they're at work. And as you saw with Ron, he's working too, so he had to step off, which is why I don't do the early streams as much. I mean, I'll try to do more early streams. Hopefully, I can get more subscribers and stuff like that. But hopefully, G Money, you're sharing the videos and letting people know about the channel. But I would love to do more early streams for sure. I would, but it's just because of time, you know. And a lot of it also was because I was working. So because I was working, it was only when I got, the time to not be able to work, I would be able to do, early streams. But it's kind of difficult, which is why I do them at night, so that's why. But I mean, it's not a guarantee. It's just because I have time. That's why now that I have a little bit of time, I can, do the early streams, man. The King says we could have seen a Kobe versus Shaq finals in '06 had he beat the Suns because I would have thought he would have beaten the Clippers. Now, here's my question to you, King. Do you think Kobe and the Lakers beat the Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals that year? Possible, but I don't think the Lakers beat the Mavs. I don't think they beat them neither. I think the Lakers could have got a couple of games on them, but I think the Mavs beat them in six. Yeah, that's true. Kobe did destroy the Mavs, and they were the seventh best defense that year. He deserves it. Shout out to Clay Pro in the building. Appreciate you. I understand, Lewis. Early streams is tough when errors are. Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Clay Pro in the building. Appreciate you. He says Tmac is better than Vince. Yeah, when it comes to the prime, it does. And again, ladies and gentlemen, again, you guys can donate to the channel right there on the Cash App, as it shows right there. If you guys would like to on the PayPal, again, as I always urge, you guys don't have to, but if you guys want to, you guys are more than welcome to donate. You guys are more than welcome to donate on the Lewis Sports Network. Um, I do this content for you guys, and you guys always do great. I appreciate you guys as always, liking and sharing the videos. The Mavs were more equipped, but as 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 the King said though, it possibly would have been possible though. It's possible. Shout out to Chiefs fan, man. Sub and to like the video. Yeah, but I'm not big on the Hawks. It's no disrespect to the Hawks, man. The funny thing is, I said that if they had gotten a superstar to kind of complement, Jeff Teague and Al Horford and Damari Carroll and um, what's his face, Kyle Korver, then I would have loved for the Hawks to go, into the NBA Finals. So again, ladies and gentlemen, there is the PayPal. If you once again you guys would like to donate, we've gotten 20 likes in this video. That's pretty good for an early afternoon stream. So I appreciate that as always. Let me see. Shout out to Tyree in the building. Appreciate you coming through. Um, so Tyree, you think Prime Vince was actually better than Prime McGrady? Interesting. I I look at it as the other way around, but that's cool. Appreciate you being here, Tyree. Paul Millsap. That's true. You can't forget about Paul Millsap. That's right. I forgot about him. Thank you for reminding me. But the king is right though when he says that's the thing, Gideon. That's the thing, G Money, because it's true. If you look at the Hawks were overrated in 2015. They should have lost to the Nets and the Wiz, but the Brooklyn and Washington didn't execute. I will say that I think that it's interesting for me that we didn't get. I felt that we should have. Oh, by the way, guys, also what I just found out, if you guys haven't found out from Zion, is actually in shape. He's actually in shape. So he actually lost. I mean, that's crazy to hear. But he is in shape. No, so that's interesting. Zion is actually in shape. I'm wondering how he's looking like right now. So they actually spoke to him, uh, and they said that he's feeling special. Okay, Tyree says Prime Vince led his teams to better records than Tmac and got out of first rounds, and Tmac was just a weapon. Hmm. So that's your argument. Okay. Ah, Prime Vince led his teams to better records than T-Mac. Let's see. Vince's Toronto Raptors were 45 and 37 in 2000 and 47 and 35 in 2001. T-Mac, the best record that oh, I see. I see that Tyree's using it as the number one guy because T-Mac was with Yao and the 51 wins that T-Mac had. T-Mac had a couple of 50-win seasons. That's something that Vince actually never was able to do. That's actually an interesting case though. The fact that you said that Prime Vince was actually able to lead than T Mac. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Um, the my my slight counter would only be that I would. Yeah, that's true though. Yeah, Vince Carter was very disappointing with the Nets, and the one thing I said about both guys is they never really played at that level of defense. Celts would have lost to the Bulls if Rondo was healthy. I see that G Money's already doing one of these possible scenarios. This is why G Money, I still feel like you should make a video. It's definitely open up, definitely start a channel because with the way that you talk about some of these things, it's like with a lot of what ifs and what ifs, you definitely have a lot on your mind. That's why I feel like you should definitely start a channel. And you know what? I could actually give you that would actually be a nice way to start your video with the 2010. I really would think that. Yeah, Vince Carter was definitely disappointing in his Nets, King. That's facts. Especially playing with Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson. My issue with Vince is he never really committed to defense. Chiefs fan says Magic Johnson or Michael Jordan. Future video. Future video. That's a future video. Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan. Future video. I like the sound of that one. I would go with MJ. I'm not mad at you if you go with Magic, but I would go with Jordan. I would go with Jordan. I could see Magic doing all that smack talking to the MJ like he did in the Olympics during the practices. Um, hmm. Clay Pro says you got to be joking to say that Vince was better than T Mac. And shout out to Clay Pro for the donation. I appreciate that, Clay Pro. Thank you so much, man. Clay Pro, true supporter from day one. I always appreciate the donations. I mean, Clay doesn't have to donate, as I always say on the stream, but he always donates. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much, Clay Pro. You are the man for that. You know, he doesn't have to donate, but he always does whenever he gets a chance, and I appreciate that for you, Clay Pro. Definitely appreciate you as always. So Clay Pro says, don't confuse play calling with skills. Are you talking about T-Mac and Vince, or are you talking about Magic and Michael? In terms of what we're talking about. Tyree, better question. If you put Isaiah Thomas, CP3, or John Stockton on any of Magic Johnson's teams, how many rings would they have won with the Lakers? Hmm. 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 That's an interesting question, though. That's a very interesting question. If you take Magic off of that team, hmm. Oh, Clay's talking about T-Mac and Vince. Okay. Like I said, Vince is the better he's more athletic than T-Mac, even though T-Mac was really the first one to do. I mean, I still love that dunk that T-Mac did in the All-Star game when he passed it to himself, and T-Mac did it so precisely too. Um, to the point that the analysts were basically like, Vince copied off of T-Mac when he did it off the backboard, and then I think when T-Mac did it again, he ended up doing it in the form of a layup. But um, yeah, I will say this though: the Rockets and the Celtics, that definitely would have been a very nice competitive NBA Finals, and I'm on record as saying this, that the Celtics gave us two really good games against two really good teams in Golden State and Boston and Houston. That's why when I saw LeBron in the NBA Finals just to get another loss, it was kind of like, meh. But then it's like all these excuses want to come out. And the funny thing is, some of the media members were even saying, why would I want to see LeBron in the finals if he was going to get lose and then get? It's funny. It's funny. The King says, I think that Vince was a better role player, but T Mac was the better superstar. T Mac was the best shooting guard of all time, not score or player, but best pure shooting guard. Hmm. Hmm. T Mac was the best pure shooting guard. Interesting that you say that, Clay Pro. Explain a little bit more on that. Explain a little bit more. Uh, Isaiah could win 3 rings. Stockton probably won, and CP3 too. Who's better? Um, oh, and shout out to G Money for the donation. I appreciate that. Thank you, G Money. I appreciate the donation. Thanks a lot, G Money. Appreciate it. Um, Tyree says T Mac was an explosive scorer, but Vince was a better player overall and led his teams further than T Mac. Okay. Clay Pro says I'm not talking about stats. I'm talking about pure shooting guard capabilities. Okay. Yeah, I know. MJ and Kobe had more shooting guard capabilities. King says Isaiah. Who is a better point guard, Isaiah Thomas or Stephen Curry? Well, I did a live stream on that one. I actually did a live stream on that one. So Chiefs fan, I think you might want to look at that video. Uh, it's gonna. So Chiefs fan, just look at the archive and you'll actually want to watch that video. You could even comment if you want. I think what I'll do for you, Chiefs fan, is I'll put it in the chat just so that you don't have to do a lot of research. Let me just go to my channel. Let me just go there. Um, let me just check some stuff out. Um, Again, guys, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button for the Lewis Sports Network. Let me just check for you, Chiefs fan. That way I could just search it for you, and that way you don't have to just really just end up looking. So make it that much easier. Let's go to videos. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at, let me just see. Let me just look down the list. Man, I put out some crazy, damn, I've had a lot of content on here. Wow, that was actually after a month. Interesting. Actually, been the best player by every category. Where is? Okay, here it is. I got it. All right, so I'm gonna click. Okay, let me just. So I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna share it. So I put the link. So Chiefs fan, I got the link in the chat. Okay, Kobe did an interview. I think it was Clay Pro. I think the one that you're talking about is that sit down that him and T-Mac had together with Rachel Nichols. I think that's the one that you're talking about, possibly. Um, unless there's another one. Kobe versus Duncan, who had a better season. Between those two, that's really tough to say. You giving out. So yeah, I just put it in the chat for you, Chiefs fan. Isaiah was definitely better than Stockton and CP3 in a modern day, and CP3 is a modern day Isaiah Thomas. Excuse me. Yeah, G Money, you definitely. I'm gonna keep recommending it to start your own channel. Isaiah Curry is closer than what you think if you really sit down and meditate on it. Uh, but injuries and playoff success give Isaiah the edge. Hmm. T-Mac was a 6'10 with the athletic ability of James Harden and Kobe. He was just injury prone due to his height. I mean, the back spasms kind of started already by 2002. Kobe did have a better season, yeah, when was able to win without Shaq. That's true. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yep. Yeah, I agree with Tyree. I do agree with that. Yeah, I do agree. I gotta agree with you with that one. Damn, man. So let me ask y'all this question before I close out the stream. And you guys have been unbelievable in the chat. And again, salute to G Money and Clay Pro for their donations. I truly appreciate that. If Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady had the work ethic, had the desire to be great, instead of Vince just focusing on highlights and just being a dunker, I mean, and taking on such a long time to really develop his skills, and then Tracy McGrady, becoming a much better player, other than just becoming an offensive scorer. Because I do agree with you, Clay Pro, when you look at T-Mac and his talents, I agree with you on that. But unfortunately, T-Mac, yeah, was injured, but I felt like he wasn't as driven, to be, because T-Mac was a much better defender for me than Vince in his prime. It's just T-Mac did not commit to defense because neither one of them, you know, commit defensively like Kobe Bryant did, even though Kobe Bryant pushed his body all the way to the ground, but he still made nine defensive teams. If T-Mac What do you think that T-Mac and Vince would have needed around them if they were to win an NBA championship? And then if T-Mac and Vince stayed together and showed that same work ethic that Kobe had at being better two-way players and overall players, how many championships do you guys think that they would have won in Toronto? Because the thing is, instead of Kawhi Leonard getting the credit for helping a Canada team win an NBA championship, a country, think what Vince and T-Mac would have been able to accomplish had they won multiple championships in Canada. How would we view their legacy much different? And if they played an extensive along of time, well, in terms of T-Mac and then Vince Carter, who had played 22 years, but I think if those guys had more prime years, where would we put them all time in terms of their accomplishments? I remember when they said Vince was the next MJ. Yep, at one point. Even T Mac to a certain degree was kind of getting that comparison. There were so many players that were getting compared to him. So many players. Let me know in the chat. So Clay Pro says if Harden would have been drafted in the late 90s, he wouldn't have had a much of impact in the NBA. But the NBA got soft, so cats like Harden now can stand out. Wow, interesting. Kind of like Antonio McDyess. Wow, it's a name I haven't heard in a while. G Money says people literally think that KD can average 35 points per game in the 90s. I'm not going 35 a game, but definitely he'll be in the 25 to 28 range. And Tyree says Tmac and Vince need a championship coach, depth on the bench, and better leadership from either Tmac or Vince. I'll say 2 rings max. Okay. I think it would have been good to compare for them, at least in Canada, to get them for a team that's not even in North America. And then as all-time players, where would we put Tmac and Vince if they would have able to accomplish this? I think for them, it would depend on their accolades in their individual accomplishments and what they would do for them as a team. Harden would be sixth man from 1998 to 2008. Damn, 10 years in the NBA as a sixth man. Let that sink in, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it from Tyree. Wow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. I'm going to put an end to this stream. I want to thank everybody for coming through on this one. Shout out to the entire chat. You guys have been awesome as always. I appreciate you guys. You guys were awesome. Salute to you guys. They definitely would have been a great duo. This was a pretty good stream, I got to say. Again, salute to everybody as always. This is Lewis with another one. Shout out to Clay Pro and G Money for their donations to the channel. I appreciate that. I had left the PayPal in the chat for those who still would like to donate. But again, it's not obligated, but I appreciate everybody, for doing that. And Clay says, just think if Harden was getting defended by cats like Gary Payton. Yo, Gary Payton would guard him 94 feet. That's a good point. That's a good point, Clay. And G Money says the T-Mac was in Toronto. They might have made the NBA Finals. That's right, because you're adding another athletic wing. That would have really helped Vince Carter out. Because Vince still gets criticized to this day for what he did in Game 7. And he didn't play well in Game 7 when he decided to get his college graduation that day to go up and get his diploma. Six man meaning six man in the depth chart. Woo, Tyree. Goddamn. So anyway, guys, this was a great stream. I thank you guys. I appreciate you guys for coming through on the Lewis Sports Network. You guys were awesome. Shout out to everybody in the chat. And that's why he came to the Rockets. Salute to all of you, Clay Pro, Tyree, G Money, everybody. I'll be back with the MJ live stream later on at 6:30. Make sure you guys pull up for that, and hopefully more people will be able to pull up for that one. But again, until next time, thank you guys from the Lewis Sports Network, as I always do on the channel. Bless up, live, laugh, love. Thank you for watching, and as always, guys, like the videos, share the videos, and for new subscribers, subscribe to the channel. As always, I'll see you guys later on at 6:30. And yes, the Bucks would have challenged the Lakers in 2001 for sure, because the Lakers had issues with them with their offense. So yeah, take care, guys, and I will see you guys at 6:30. I appreciate you guys. Take care. Again, shout out to Clay and G Money for the donations. See you guys at 6:30. No, the Lakers still get the Bucks. They still beat them. True that, Clay Pro. They kind of would have got there in terms of that. But again, guys, see you guys all later on. Take care, man.